1.21 gigawatts. Great God!
Shall we play a game?
Would you like a jelly baby?
Engage auto systems.
Aye. Engaged.
Clear all moorings.
Cleared, sir.
1/4 impulse power.
You know how to fly, don't you?
No. Do you?
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
The Force will be with you, always.
Hi, and welcome to the Geek Hangout Podcast. My name is Mark, and I am joined tonight, as always, by my very good friend and co-host, Grant. How are you tonight, Grant?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great. Hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Geek Hangout Podcast, episode 76. We got a nice show for you tonight. We're going to talk about the season finale of Star Trek Picard. I should say the series finale of Star Trek Picard. And then we're going to go into Star Wars, and it's going to be a Star Wars extravaganza. We're going to talk about the season 3 finale of Mandalorian, and then we're going to cover all the Celebration 2023 news that came out. It's been a couple weeks now, but we never got a chance to talk about it, so we're just going to run through that and cover all the announcements they made for various TV shows and movies and all that exciting stuff. So without further ado, we like to say what's been going on. So I'll throw it to Mark and ask him what's going on, man.
I'll tell you, it's interesting because I really, until just a second, I didn't know what I was going to say. But I actually remember how I've been saying I was working my way through Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, right, yeah,
right. Well, it was cool because before I saw the finale of Star Trek Picard, I finally finished.
Oh, okay.
The Star Trek Voyager. So that was kind of cool because then it kind of led right into the season finale or series finale of Star Trek Picard. So that was really cool. And I have to say, and I guess I'll do spoiler alert for the show that ended 20 years ago, I guess. But so if you haven't seen the ending and don't want to get spoiled, maybe skip past this. But it was the ending was a little strange.
Oh, really?
Yeah, whereas Star Trek, The Next Generation, I thought the ending was excellent.
They had a perfect ending. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love the ending of that show. I thought Deep Space Nine was really good.
Okay.
I mean, was a little strange too, but at least it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
With Cisco going off and becoming a wormhole god and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But this was really it was a little, I don't know, it seemed kind of strange because have you ever seen the ending?
I don't know. I know they make it back to the regular, the regular part of the Federation space. I know that happens, but I don't know if I saw the show or if I just know that, you know what I mean? So what ended up happening?
The final 2 episodes are called Endgame, which I thought was interesting.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah, but it's it's a really strange and I guess they're trying to sort of do what they did with Next Gen, but future Janeway, future Captain Janeway goes back because apparently in her timeline, Voyager makes it back, but it takes them 23 years to get there or something like that. And they lose some of the crew along the way, including Chakotay and 7 of 9. All of them die before they get home, right?
Oh, all right.
But they finally make it home. So future Janeway decides she's going to go back in time and fix it so that they come back earlier.
Okay.
Right? And so she does that, and then she's on board the Voyager with current Janeway and future Janeway. I don't know. It's just it's a little strange.
Yeah. Is she in old age makeup? And everything?
She's older. She's got gray hair and everything.
It's funny that you say, because I think I remember that element. I remember seeing her in the old makeup, but that could have just been an image I saw somewhere. But anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So
she does that, and there's all this story about, of course there's drama that happens, and
right, yeah,
nothing goes as planned, and yada yada yada. But in the end, they make it back.
Okay.
Right. They make it back through to Federation space, which is really cool. But it's they make it back, and it's sort of we're home. and they're flying towards Earth, and then that's it. It ends. Like there's no
right,
right. It's no. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really like.
Yeah,
it was sort of a strange ending because it's not like
I'm trying.
It's not like the other Federation ships were even surprised they got there.
They're just like, okay.
They're like, oh, welcome home. And
Yeah,
then everybody's, oh, look at how happy we are. And that's it. They just fly in towards Earth. And it was like,
I can't.
I just thought it was weird.
Yeah, I can't remember. But was Voyager canceled?
No, the only one is Voyager. And see, this is what I think. I wonder if they saw the writing on the wall and they were like, we got to wrap this up. Right.
Oh, okay.
So Voyager was never canceled. So they went out on their own. The only Star Trek show that was ever canceled was Enterprise.
Okay, got it. All right.
Yeah. So, but I wonder, like, that's what when I watched it, that's what my thought was, because it almost feels like there should be a show after that.
Right.
About like them getting home and like reuniting with families and all that kind of stuff, because none of that happened.
Yeah, you'd think there would have been something, but yeah, maybe they like you said, maybe the writing was on the wall and they figured, and not for anything, I don't remember the show that well, but like if they had reunited with their families, would it have meant anything? Because like, did we ever meet their families?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, we met like, I guess one of the characters, Tom Paris, his father was an admiral, so we'd seen him before.
That's right. I forgot about him.
That's actually a good point that you didn't really know.
Yeah. But maybe they figured, right, they're like, all right, we made it home. And if the writing was on the wall, maybe they said, we'll let the audience fill in the gaps of like, oh, how nice or something.
Yeah. Like, how did they explain 7 of 9? Who was like this Borg and now she's not. And it's like, well, we found her along the way. And,
hey, look, we brought home a Borg.
Right? Like, I don't know. It's just really.
That would have been probably the most interesting part is just to be like, right. You're like, hey, we have a Borg that's not a Borg anymore. Like, that would have been fascinating,
Yeah, it was just the editing just seemed very, I don't know, not abrupt. Satisfying.
Yeah. Well, and then maybe like that's interesting. So,
but I will say that show, while like I remember watching it when it first came out and being like, I don't like this show, and the first few seasons are a little rough. Like first couple seasons of a Star Trek show are generally rough.
Right.
But like, and then they kind of hit their stride. But like, this was rough for like, I'm going to say 3 seasons.
Okay.
And then they do hit their stride. And I really do. The whole show changes when 7 of 9 joins the crew.
Right. Yeah.
Like it really does. And I really do think like it is for a long time. I was like, oh, she was just, an attractive lady in a very tight-fitting suit. And that's why that was the appeal, right?
Right. Here's the sex symbol, It seemed like very much like a
But that it's really not. I mean, she was really like she was a very well done character, and so so now I sort of understand how she ended up in Picard, right? Because I do feel like she had the chops to do it. Like she's a pretty good character.
Yeah, right. If you're going to bring anybody back, I mean, she's interesting because she's Borg, but she's also her character was interesting, and you're right.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, from what I even remember, like, I have a hard time remembering most of the cast of Voyager. You know what I mean? Like, I know I watched some of the episodes. I know I know I made an effort, but like, I'll be like, hear a name or do something like what you just said, Tom Paris. Like until you said his name, I wouldn't have been able to recall him.
Right.
And then you said the name. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that guy.
Yeah. So I like the show in general, and also I think the another one of the characters that ends up being really good is the Doctor. The holographic Doctor. He's great. I mean, he really was. He was very good.
Have we seen him anywhere else? Did he ever turn up?
He has popped up from time to time. I think he was in one of the movies.
Oh, I think yes. I think
he pops up in one of the movies.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised we didn't see him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's popped up since.
Yeah, I'm surprised. You think they would have fit him into Picard somewhere? Because it would have been even as a cameo or something. But yeah.
But but I'm glad I watched it now. Like now I've done it. I've finally gotten through.
Right. Yeah.
Star Trek Voyager. So now I've seen all of Deep Space Nine. I've seen all of Voyager. I certainly saw all of. I long ago watched all of Next Generation.
Right.
So now The only one I really haven't gotten all the way through is Enterprise. So that'll probably be my next.
So Enterprise. Now that one I can say I've never seen any of those. Right.
Yeah.
So now that is obviously they're on the Enterprise, but are they on the Enterprise from the original series, or is it like a pre?
It's a pre. It's like it's like the first Enterprise.
Okay.
And before it's 1701, whatever.
Oh, I gotcha. Right.
And it's not long after. I think it's like within 100 years of when they first discover how to go to warp.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. Because
it's not even 100 years because actually that character from the movie.
Right.
What's his name?
Zephram, right?
Zephram Cochrane.
Right. Okay.
Who discovers warp drive.
Yeah, because he's
in the movie.
Maybe I did see some episodes because I remember he turns up in the show.
Yeah, he's in the show. So so it's very early after they discover warp, and it's like that's when they're first meeting. They make their first contact with like they make first contact in the movie, but then it's like you're getting to know the Vulcans for the first time.
Yes,
they're working with Vulcans and that kind of thing. So,
okay, all right.
So and I've started watching. Like I actually kind of like that show. Like I've never gotten all the way through it.
Okay.
I think I've maybe gotten halfway or at least 2 seasons into it.
Right.
And I thought it was okay. I mean, I sort of liked it. I mean,
Yeah. I wonder why, I know it's not, like I said, it was canceled. And I mean, I don't know if people hate it, but I you don't hear it referenced as much. And I'm just curious why, like I wonder if it's, was it not that good of a show? Was it, did the time period throw people off that they went back so far?
Yeah.
But that popped in my head just recently. I can't remember. It probably has to do with, we'll talk about the Picard finale, but there was talk of a spin-off show, and I think I was thinking about that, like, oh wait, when does that Enterprise show fit in to like Strange New Worlds and like I wasn't sure of the timeline. So okay.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, on Strange New Worlds, they may make reference to that captain.
Okay.
Somewhere along the line, that captain got referenced in another show.
What was
the cat? And I can't even think of his name.
I just know he's the Quantum Leap guy.
The Quantum Leap guy.
I can't remember his real name either.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I think they've always done a good job of like weaving in different things, especially this last, and we'll get into it, but even Picard, like weaving in things like that where it's like nice references and
Yeah.
We said last time they brought back like where they brought in Admiral Shelby last time.
Yeah, right.
Like I totally forgot about her until I looked her up, and I'm like, oh my god, I totally forgot about that character. That's pretty cool that they remembered her, not only that but brought her back.
Yeah, that was cool. Cool.
So
anyway, but that's all I've been up to.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't really been doing much. I've just been watching and catching up on everything. Yeah, I can't think of. I don't think I've been done anything else. Anyway,
it's like a full-time job keeping up with all this stuff.
It really is. By the time you pay attention and pull everything together, you're like, man, I just spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
I know last week we had a couple of nice days. I was outside doing some stuff, so I was happy for the warm weather. I was happy to get outside. But other than that, not nothing really else going on. Oh, I was going to ask you. We did go to a Phillies game on Saturday.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, because you posted about the game. You posted about the game being delayed by an hour for the rain.
Yes.
And then for a minute, I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's going to be there. But then I saw you didn't post anything, so I knew you weren't going to be down there. We went down. Our friends had a 50th, our 50th birthday party. Husband and wife both are returning 50s, so they got a suite down there. We went down for the day.
Oh, nice, very nice.
Yeah. It was fun. We had a nice time. It was really, it was sweet. The suite was sweet.
Yeah.
Because they had a nice spread of food and. It was a nice day and everything. So, and the game, it was supposed to be, I think, at 4, and they bumped it back to 3.
Okay.
And so it's funny, like we got out of there, like we're like, we literally, just get to the game ended and everything like that. We get back to the car and we're just starting to pull out, and it starts raining. We're like, perfect.
Okay.
We're like, great.
They won Saturday, right? Is it Saturday?
Yeah.
They won Saturday.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got it on right here.
They playing
the last time I looked, they were losing.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
It
they're
was fun.
still losing.
I haven't been to a Phillies game in years, so it was fun. It was just fun to go down and
Yeah.
I don't pay that close attention to the game, but it was just fun. It was an enjoyable day at the ballpark. You know what I mean?
I love that park.
Yeah,
I
really
love
do, too.
that park.
You know what I really like is I like seeing concerts there. We've seen a few shows
Yeah.
down there. It's Citizens Bank in Philadelphia, and we saw Bruce Springsteen there. We saw Billy Joel there. We saw Elton John there, and I love a big outdoor concert like that. And I do like that stadium.
There's really not a bad seat in that stadium. There really isn't. I mean, it's even if you're high up, it's you get a pretty good view of everything.
Yeah. So I like it. It's it's new. I don't know. It feels clean for what I mean. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a nice. I like it. They do a good job there. So
Yeah.
that was good. The silliest thing in the highlight, and this is totally on a tangent. So we're leaving, and the one person we were with, she wanted to go to the one store. So we're trying to get to the store, and the stadium's empty and out and stuff. And we're walking by Shake Shack, and this girl's out front. She's like, free shakes, and we're like, I'm like, what? She was free milkshakes. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, well, what's the catch? Yeah, we go in there, and I guess they had all these shakes made that people had to purchase. They're just giving out free shakes. Right. That was the highlight of my day.
Yeah. When Nick and I go, we usually hang out. Like I don't like fighting with the traffic, so I'd rather wait. Like we'll go to the store and mill around. And then, they'll give away stuff.
I've never experienced that. So, pro tip is go head to the Shake Shack.
Good stuff.
I know, right? So, all right. Well, that's what we've been up to. And now I guess we'll get into the show itself. And, kind of spinning off of what Mark was talking about, we're going to talk about Star Trek and Star Trek Picard and the season and series finale.
Yes. So I mean, I guess I'll ask you. We have to read. Like I'm the big Star Trek fan. So where did you come down? Like you and I haven't talked about any of this stuff tonight. So where do you fall on the season finale, series finale of Star Trek?
Yeah. So full spoilers. I really liked it. It was like you've said last episode in reference to this season of Picard. You're like, it might be fan service, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought the same thing. I mean, the episode was good. It stands on its own. It's not, nothing was just there just to be there. You know what I mean? Everything made sense, and I really enjoyed it. And but yeah, I mean, it just hit all the right buttons, and I mean, it was a delight. You know what I mean? Like that's a nice way to say it. It's just I really liked it. I thought they tied everything up nicely. They gave the characters another. I mean, talking about endings and stuff before, the Next Generation, their finale was probably one of the best ones that they've ever done. When they wrapped up the Next Generation, and this was almost. I don't want to say they copied it, but like this ends with them playing cards again, and it was perfect. I mean, it's like, yes, they did that 20, 30 years ago, 30, whatever, how long ago, but they were playing cards again. I'm like, great. I'm like, I didn't have a problem with that at all. I was like, this is awesome. And, a lot of, I don't know. I really liked it. I was very happy with it. And, and then they also did set up, they weren't even trying to hide it. They definitely set up the fact that 7 of 9 is going to be the captain of the new Enterprise.
Yeah.
And Raffi's her first officer, and I guess the LaForge girls would be there, and then Jack Crusher is going to be, Jack Crusher, right? And then whoever else may be there. But so and that's they're tentatively calling that Star Trek Legacy.
Star Trek Legacy, and it's not. Apparently, it's not
official.
It's not official.
Yeah.
But so that's why there was a lot of on Twitter. They're like, make sure you spread around the hashtag Star Trek Legacy.
Yeah.
Tell Paramount we want this. And I really want to see that crew go on.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of think. I mean, we talked about it earlier. It was fairly clear that's where they were headed. Right. I didn't know that. I figured Shaw would make it and he would still be the captain, and but that didn't happen. So, but I love that 7 of 9 is now the captain of the Enterprise. Right. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved this show. This whole season, I thought they just knocked it out of the park. This is what we wanted. This is what this is what we wanted from the beginning.
You know,
and he just did such a nice job with it. The characters were true to their characters.
Right. Nobody came in off the wall or like,
you're right.
We always compare it to Star Wars, but it wasn't like, oh, something horrible has happened and this character is, totally different than you remember them. I mean, it started out, Beverly and Picard had been estranged for what was it,
right,
20 some years or something like that. So first I remember being like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this, but then boop, and it was
they make that make sense.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm. I thought all of the characters got a good amount. Like none of them because in the movies, half my problem with the next gen movies was that a lot of them got like short shrift, right? Like they didn't know what to do with Deanna, so Deanna didn't really have much to do. Crusher, they didn't have much to do.
Right.
But I feel like all of them got this was like a true episode of next gen. Like all of them got their moment in the sun. All of them got their place to shine. Like it was really, really well done. It really was, and I think it wrapped up really well. I if I have a nitpick,
okay,
it's this, right? I heard somebody else was talking about this, and I have the same nitpick. Sort of applies to Mandalorian too.
Okay.
So they certainly telegraph that somebody's not going to make it, right? Like they make it. It's like a big scene. Like when Picard leaves the bridge. And he's like, "It's been an honor to serve with you." I mean, they make it sound like those three go off to the Borg cube, and you're like, somebody ain't making it back, right?
Right.
And if I have one nitpick, it's that. Like, look, if you're gonna go there, then go there, right? And not that I want to see any of these characters not make it, but like, okay, if you're gonna tease that.
Right.
Then make that jump.
Right. Don't fake us out, or don't don't. It can, you didn't have. It reminds me of like in Rise of Skywalker when you thought Chewie died, and then you thought 3PO was getting his mind wiped. It's like they were just fake out after fake out, and I didn't think this wasn't that bad. But it was definitely, you're like, oh, it made you worry enough, but you're like, oh, you're like, you didn't have to go there. I was already worried, I was already concerned for the characters.
And it's not that I'm upset that they all, right? Like I'm thrilled that they all made it because now we'll have them for other stories. But somebody I was listening to, and I don't remember where it was. It was on YouTube or podcast or something I was listening to this week. Somebody said, and I don't remember if it was in reference to this or if it was in reference to Mandalorian, but I think it's the same kind of problem, or even Marvel these days, right?
Okay.
It's that the stakes aren't there for somebody to die anymore. I mean, not so much. I guess with Marvel, they killed Tony Stark, right?
Right. Yeah.
But like, the stakes aren't there to, for somebody to die, because in the end, the people who own the property don't want that character to die because they want to use that character for future stories, right? So they don't. So it's like, it's So they sort of make that like, oh, somebody's not going to make it, and then they're like, oh, they're all okay. And I see what they're with this person. I wish I could give whoever credit, because I thought it was a really good point. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want, and maybe it's the Star Trek or Star Wars blowback after Luke's, probably like in retrospect they're probably like, yeah, maybe we should have kept him around, like maybe it would be a good thing. So maybe it's that too, a little blowback from killing Luke Skywalker when he didn't have to.
Right. But I know what you're saying. It's like, it's like they're playing it a little too safe at this point.
Yeah.
It's like,
because they always want to use. They're like, well, we don't want to kill anybody because we could use them for a future story. So let's just throw
Right.
them around.
And and they're afraid, like you said, about the blowback and I mean, no, nobody wants to see their heroes die, I guess is the way to say.
Right.
And unfortunately, Star Wars went down that road. But I even remember staying with Star Trek. Remember when they killed Captain Kirk all those years ago?
Yes.
In Generations.
Yes.
And remember, it was it just didn't feel right. I remember when that happened, it felt a little forced, and it felt a little like you're like, oh, I just remember it just didn't feel right. And it's one of those things where you're like, I mean, I don't, I know it was at the time they're like, oh, we're, these guys are old and we're going to pass it on and all this stuff. But at the same time, in hindsight, they're probably like, oh my God, Bill Shatner's still around and kicking his bed.
Right. He could still be in.
Right. I mean, and so it's like something like that where they're like, I guess it's something, I don't know. I guess it's something like that where it's like they totally could have. They may have regretted that,
Right. So and that's my only, again, very small. I don't mind that nobody died. I'm very cool with that because I really didn't expect Jean-Luc to make it out of this season. I was sure he was going to die.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they were sort of telegraphing that Riker may have been the one to die.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, they're not killing him. He's, I really thought that Picard would be the one to go, only because his show's ending, and not for anything, Patrick Stewart is an old older guy.
Right.
How old is Patrick Stewart? Is he 80? Right?
I think he's in his 80s. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So.
But other that aside, I just loved this whole season. I mean, they really did a nice job. They really got the feeling of it. That's what I like. I think I didn't hate. Well, season 2 of this show was not good.
Right.
I didn't hate season 1, but it didn't have that feel.
I give season 1 a little bit of leeway because they were trying something new. You're like, it was called Picard, and they didn't tease they didn't tease that it was going to be a Next Generation reunion. It was more like, all right, here's what Picard's doing now. So I cut a little leeway, and I found that I really enjoyed the data parts of it and all that.
Yeah.
But then by season 2, you're like, I do not like where this is going, and then the story got off the rails. But then, maybe they played it right because now, but by doing this, basically we were begging for this. We were begging for the, so, and then when season 3 rolls around, you're like, finally, this is exactly what I wanted. So, maybe for the best, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it,
It is I do think, I think they knew going into it that they were going to get at least 2 seasons out of it. I don't know that they thought they were going to get 3, but they it is sort of his journey. You know what I'm saying? His journey from this, he's sort of fallen out of favor with Starfleet. He's retired. He's this old man. And just, as he said, just sitting in his vineyard waiting to die. And, and one of the things, I remember when they interviewed him, I saw an interview, I think it was on that Will Wheaton thing.
Oh, okay.
And they really wanted to show how much he had changed. So when he's on board, when he first gets on board that ship, the La Serena, in season 1,
right,
and they have him standing there with his bottles of wine and his bread, and I think the captain says, all right, well, you give the order to do your thing, engage, right? So and he does, and he did, right? But I think I remember Patrick Stewart saying it wasn't, he did it, and he did that line in such a way that it was he's no longer the captain of the flagship of the Federation. He's standing there with his bread and his wine, right. And you're supposed to see it's not as strong, it's not as, And I thought that was, but contrast that with when he sits in the chair on board the Enterprise D,
right?
And it's he immediately goes back into the role, and he even does he pulls down his shirt, the Picard maneuver.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and it's so it is when you think about that moment in the first season and that moment in the third season, the journey he's taken,
right?
Which was kind of, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is pretty neat when you look at it that way, because I hadn't made that, what I mean, that that, I didn't follow through that way.
Yeah.
Because I was, initially with this season, I was just looking at it. It's like, all right, it's like a soft reboot because basically everything was so different than the previous 2 seasons. But you're right, when you really look at it, it was a nice journey. They did it in a nice way, right? Where Picard did start out and he was down in the dumps, and things weren't exactly like the old days and heroic, but they still brought him back, right. And it was just it was very well done.
Like I like that was one of my favorite when he sits down in the chair on the Enterprise D.
Yeah,
and he does the
so
thing
funny.
with the shirt. Like I was like, that's awesome, because like that was a thing he just used to do.
Right,
like as an actor, because the thing used to ride up on him all the time, but it became like his signature thing, Yeah, he would sit down and like pull a shirt down, like that was kind of cool.
What's funny is there was something with like there's all these memes with like Riker about how he used to always like have his leg up on different things, or like he'd like go to sit down and throw his leg over the chair, and I guess that's just how he was, or But so there was something in the finale where I don't know, he did something, and
he's got his leg.
He's got his leg up on something, and everyone's like, "Look!"
Yeah,
which is just like silly, I definitely remember Picard doing that all the time, pulling his shirt down. I don't remember Riker and his leg thing, and I feel like that happened, like that became noticed afterwards.
Yeah, if you watch, because it's a lot of times it's really overdone. Like I remember watching it then and being like, oh my god, that's so cheesy, because he would turn the chair around, but he always had his on these consoles, like the behind me on my on those consoles, he would go up to the front console and he put his leg up on the slanted part there. He would always do that. So I did catch when he did that. And that's even funny. Just Data and Geordi being in those 2 front seats.
That was
because at the beginning of before Geordi becomes the engineer, that's what it was, right? He was in that pilot seat.
Right. Because I remember when they first did the show, I remember, I don't know why I remember this, but Gene Roddenberry said something like I thought it was pretty clever to have a blind pilot.
Yeah.
He liked the idea of Geordi being blind, but yet he was the pilot of the ship.
Yeah.
And, that was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing, even throughout the whole thing, like, throughout the series, Data and Geordi were like best friends. I mean, yes, he's the android or whatever, but and like it was just, I don't know, it was nice to see them like come back together, and like, you really felt that yes, Geordi missed his friend, and like they're sitting there together because like Picard puts Geordi in charge, and like Data's there with him, and they're kind of sitting there together, and I don't know, just they did a really nice job with that, where you're like you believe that it's like all right, they're back together, and I don't know, it was good. They really did a nice job.
Yeah, it was. I really liked how they did it. It was just a great show. It really was. I loved it, and I'll gladly watch it again. Like I'll probably go back and rewatch the season.
Yeah, now this one I would go back and rewatch it because same rate, because it was just enjoyable, and there it feels like there's a lot of little Easter eggs in there that not as much lore Easter eggs, but like funny things like Riker's foot up on the panel, or Picard doing that, or just little things like that where they picked up on it. So I can't remember the guy's name, but so this season the showrunner was different than the previous 2 seasons. I believe.
Yeah, right? It's like
Terry something. Am I right?
Metalis or something?
Yes. Okay.
I have it here somewhere.
So I don't know where this guy came from. I actually meant to look it up and I forgot. I was just curious, like where he, but
yeah,
I mean, he just really came in and hit it out of the park. So much so as, I mean, yes, we loved it, and I know the fans have been very happy with it, but apparently it made it into the top 10 of like streaming shows this past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I want to say I didn't see it this week. I think I saw it like the week before, like after we did our last podcast when we were, it was like the second to last episode. I think that made it into the top 10 or something.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, yeah, which was like, not for anything, but it was like unheard of for Star Trek. So I was like, they got to be really happy with this guy and with what they're doing here. If it's breaking records that way for them, because that was the whole idea of Paramount Plus and Star Trek anyway. That that's why they put it all there. They want people to talk about it, and I think this really did it for him. So
yeah, it's Terry Matalas, and he was best known for co-creating the show and show running the 12 Monkeys series, which I never saw.
Oh, okay.
He was a showrunner on MacGyver.
Oh,
it was canceled in 2021. Not the
the reboot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so and then they have him as Picard. I don't know what else.
Oh,
that's
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good for him, man. I mean,
he was. I thought he was very. I mean, yeah, like people are thrilled with him. They're like, oh, do Star Trek Legacy and give it to him, and because he really did get. I mean, I loved all the. One of the things I've always loved about Star Trek was the ship stuff. Like I love the ship battles, and when the episodes where something goes wrong with the ship and they gotta get it fixed. Like I always loved that stuff, and there was a lot of that this season.
Yeah, it's funny,
and I liked it
because I like that stuff too, and I didn't realize that I didn't realize I was missing it. You know what I mean? Like I knew I didn't care for the first 2 seasons, but I didn't realize what I was missing. And then when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I think I missed the ships. I missed the fleet and like the La Sorrenta was this little tiny spaceship zipping around, and it felt very Star Warsy. And I'm like, well, that's kind of neat, but I'm like, but this is Star Trek. I want the big flagships.
Right.
Yeah, that's
the nacelles, and I want the
I remember even watching the old movies. They were like, they're trying so hard a lot of times to get more action, to be more Star Warsy, and you're like, guys, you're Star Trek. Embrace it, and have your big, it's like like you said, it's like like Battleship, or I mean, it's like it's not about all little small fighters. It's about the big ships fighting, and doing that kind of stuff.
I think that's what I've always loved about. I think that's why Wrath of Khan remains my favorite Star Trek movie, because the whole thing takes place in it's like a chess match. With these ships, and it's great.
Right. I mean, it really is. Yes, it's not action packed and zipping around and all that. But for not for what it is in a bad way, but for what it is in a good way. I enjoyed that. I really, like you said, it's like chess, and I like that too.
Really good. Really good.
So I was going to say, the only thing to sort of wrap it up, but I did read that they're pushing hard for Star Trek Legacy. And the showrunner, I read an interview with him, and he did say that if it gets picked up, what he hopes to do is, push forward with the new crew, but then also bring in elements of Voyager with 7-9 and Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So
that would be great.
Yeah, that would be great. I think that would be good, right? Because that'd be fun to see. And we really, we kind of have an idea of the state of the Star Trek universe right now. But if they get another show and it's more, if it's more about pushing forward with some characters you're familiar with, I'd be interested in that a lot. Just to.
And I think one of the cool things about this show, about the Picard series, over all 3 seasons, is it's the only show so far that we've gotten a lot of Star Trek shows. It's the only show that moves forward. Right. You know what I'm saying? In time. Like we had the JJ movies created the what do they call it, the
Kelvin
universe.
Yeah, right.
Discovery is back in Kirk's era. Strange New Worlds is great too, but that's back in Kirk era.
Right.
There hasn't been this is the first show that moves forward from where we left off, and that's what I think is really
Discovery
interesting.
Yes, Discovery's in the far future.
Well, now it is, but that's not how it started, right?
Yes, no, I agree, and I wasn't sure. I haven't kept current with it. I assumed that's where they're staying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but that's.
It's thousands of years in the future.
Right. But too far, too far ahead for me to care.
Right, exactly,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, so right, but for all this, it's like, well, if, this is where the current timeline is. This is what I'd like to, I'd like to see. I'd like to know.
And they have so much to mine. I mean, because we were talking about Voyager, we were talking about, there's those characters from Deep Space Nine. There's so much,
right? There's all kinds of stuff
to do there, and I would love to see it. And I think 7 and 9 as the new captain is great. I do wonder how they're going to deal with. Are they even going to deal with the relationship? Or are they just going to
with her and Raffi? You mean?
Yeah, or are they just going to gloss over that? Do you think?
I think they might just gloss over it.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Because I was thinking about it, and I was sort of like, oh, because I thought it was great that 7 and 9 became captain, but then Raffi's her first officer, and I'm just kind of like, well, that seems a little odd.
Well, it's a little bit of a conflict of
right, So then I'm like, so maybe. I don't know. They're either going to do one or the other. They're either going to ignore it, or they're going to probably acknowledge it head on and just be like, listen, this happened, but we work better as friends, and maybe just do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would that would probably be the best thing to do, is just acknowledge it and be done with it.
Yeah.
If they don't want to pursue it, because it doesn't seem like that's something you should,
You shouldn't have your first officer be
your
part of a couple.
Right. Yeah.
So so I wonder how they'll deal with that, but yeah, I think that's great, and I thought I like the Jack Crusher character. Right. I thought he was really good, and I'm happy he's going to be in hopefully the new show.
Right.
But his role I thought was a little strange.
Yes, I thought that too.
That he was just like the advisor. I was like, why wouldn't you make him like the science officer or something? Just for story reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know why so he's just going to be like the Deanna Troi character.
I guess they're redefining that role, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because I was even thinking that when they were on the Titan, and Riker was there. Who was Riker's first officer? Am I blanking on that?
I don't think you ever find out.
Oh, maybe you don't. Oh no, right. And then I
don't think he ever says.
I'm sorry, but then when they came on and Shaw was there with 7 and 9 as his first officer, the third seat's there, but they never ever acknowledge who the counselor was.
Right.
That whole time.
Yeah,
I remember, and even back during Next Generation with poor Deanna, a lot of times it started out with good intentions, but a lot of times she got left behind and she got lost. She had her chair there, but it became. I think it became apparent, or fairly early on, where this may have been while it's nice and it makes sense, this may have been a mistake.
She was clearly the weakest character in the cast.
Yeah, and writing wise, it's oh, this sounded nice, but now we've locked ourselves into having these three chairs, and so I was made me laugh when there was not a counselor around in the future, for Shaw, and I'm sort of and then when they did that with him, I'm like, okay, they're going to call him the special counselor, so that's they've redefined the role. Instead of a true counselor, it's going to be more hey, here's somebody whose opinion I value. You're my counselor.
Yeah. So I just thought that was the only thing. I thought that was a little weird, because I think I just would have made him the science officer.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
But whatever.
Right. Read it, and if you're doing it, and if they could have just ripped that third chair out, and when it got rechristened at the Enterprise, they could have just said, "Oh, yeah, we redesigned the bridge a little bit."
Yeah. They do need to turn the lights on in that place. They absolutely need to turn the lights, because it is really, really. I mean, it looks cool, but it's you need to just turn the light, because it was such a contrast when they get on board the Enterprise D, and it's you can see everything.
Right. I know. I guess they like it, because now they have all the LEDs in the board. I mean, they like it, so it probably looks a lot neater. But yes, it's turn on the lights.
Yeah. So, but I'm giving this. If you're a Star Trek fan and you haven't seen Star Trek Picard season 3, man, go watch it, because you are missing out. Yeah, it was very, very good.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Especially if you're a fan of the old stuff. I mean, it's great. It's good stuff.
So they actually did announce. I think they announced that either the day it ended or the shortly thereafter, they did announce there's going to be a Star Trek Section 31 film.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yep.
With Michelle Yeoh.
Right.
And then there's going to be a Starfleet. I think we knew this already.
Oh,
there's going to be a Starfleet Academy show.
Yes.
And I don't know if it takes place in the current timeline or if it takes place in the past or when it takes place.
Now that I'm not sure about either. I did read that there was an Star Trek Academy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no idea I have no idea, right? A timeline when it's taking place,
Yeah, and
I guess
I think that's an old idea that they revived because I think that there was an episode with Wesley and actually the guy who played Tom Paris on Voyager was in that episode, and they were all cadets.
Yeah. Yes.
And there was talk of that spinning off into its own thing at one point.
Yes.
And then it didn't happen. So I think this is sort of an old idea that they're reviving.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like it's very a bunch of young people and they're training, and from a drama standpoint, it makes sense. But I guess when I heard that this was when that was announced, I think I just pictured it being Next Generation era.
I would assume it is.
Or this present day era.
Yeah.
But I don't know what. Yeah, it could be any time really. So I hope it's. I say Next Generation, but I really mean present day. Yeah. So one last thing I had to talk about too. At the very, very end of it, there's the end credit scene with Jack Crusher and Q.
Oh yeah,
right.
I totally forgot about that. That's right.
That totally was setting up the potential series, but I just liked it because I'm like, you see Q, and I'm like, what's he doing? He's supposed to have died. And even Jack Crusher says that to him, and Q's like, oh, you think so literally, yeah. Literally, right? I can't even say the word, right? Yeah, and it just cracked me up because I'm like, well, I guess they decided that Q's alive still. Like someone's like, yeah, that was a bad idea. We should have killed Q.
Well, well, you know what? Like some of this season, I feel like is trying to fix. Like I think they even know that season 2 sort of went off the rails, and I feel like some of what happened in season 3 is trying to fix what happened in season 2.
Yeah,
and that's one of them because in my view, Q really got. So, like I was really excited about Q being in season 2.
So excited!
Really excited. Like that was what I was like. This is going to be so cool. And then he just what they did with him was so strange.
It was
like it never really made any sense.
That's really it didn't never made sense. Like I just remember
the scenes he was in were really good. Like because he's such a scenes he was in were good. But when you think that, like it's like nothing that Q did really made any sense.
Right. You're like, but what was he doing? Like, right. Yeah.
I know.
So yeah. I was more than happy to be, he's back. Great.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad.
Hand wave that away. Good. He's alive. That's all,
And fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like I don't need any more explanation than that.
Yeah. I know.
I do want to see if they go to Star Trek Legacy, we've got to see a Wesley Jack meetup.
I think that would be, yes, I think that would be very nice to see somehow.
Yeah.
And somebody else said, and it's interesting. So the android character, the girl from season 1 and season 2, right? Who, Soji, I couldn't remember her name. So, but remember, I think it's in season 1. Basically, they're like, oh, she's Data's daughter. Do you remember them saying that?
Yes.
Right. And then that kind of got lost along the way. But I saw someone saying if they do this legacy show, it may be very interesting to bring her back. Because I think, because she's as of the end of season 2, she's still around, but I don't remember what happened. They wrote her off, but she's still out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's these android. Yeah, because she's still out there as an android,
right?
Where whatever happened, I don't even remember what happened to all of them, but yeah, she's still out there as an android.
Yeah,
and then she becomes a Q with Wesley, like the real daughter.
Oh.
That's the whole Wesley scene at the end
Oh, he takes her away.
He takes her away.
That's dumb.
But she's not but when he takes her away, she's not an android. She's like she's in season 2, the model that the android is made from is her.
Okay, so the original one goes away.
Right.
Got it. But yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, so the android version of that girl of Soji is
still out there somewhere. Yes.
Okay. All right. So,
but it's kind of I did think it was kind of funny that they were just sort of like, oh, yeah,
right. What's that old
Soji?
What's that? Remember that Simpsons episode they make fun of, and they're like, it was like Itchy and Scratchy, and they introduced like a dog character. And so and so went back to his home planet and died on the way, or something. It was totally like that. Like they're just like, oh yeah, Soji, yeah. Wesley took her to BQ. They're good. She's dead. She's dead now. But I totally forgot about the whole just the tagline of Data's daughter. I found when I was reading at this one article, I thought I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about that. Basically, that tagline made that character so much more interesting to me in hindsight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, if they do go down that road, it would be neat to bring her in somehow, even if it's like for a guest spot, but just and a Data episode, or if they bring back Brent Spiner, it would be neat to see something like that, because that's something that I would have liked to have known. Like, well, what do you mean Data created a daughter? Maybe they addressed it more in the show, and I can't remember it, but I thought
they do. I don't remember what all happened, but yes, she is. Somehow she was considered to be Data's daughter, because that's how Picard got involved. That's how he got all involved, because he found out that she knew stuff about Data that she shouldn't have known, or something like that.
Right.
And that's how. And then he started digging into that, and then it became this big thing, and then he realized she's really his daughter, and it's like a whole thing.
Yeah, I know. I might have to go read a recap.
Yeah.
Season 1 that maybe just discusses Data, and that, because season 1 was all over the place. But if you were able to just follow that through line and make it literally edit it down to like one episode, like that would have been probably the most interesting thing for me anyway.
Yeah, right. So.
Anyway, okay.
Anyway,
all right. So let's wrap up Picard, I guess, and we'll head over into Star Wars.
All right, so let's move on to our Star Wars stuff. So I guess we'll start with the season finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Okay. Right.
And what'd you think of the season finale of Mandalorian? What do you think?
So I liked it. I enjoyed it. I always like it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I was disappointed, because I did enjoy it, and there was action packed, and all that stuff. I really thought it was gonna lead into something bigger. Maybe is the best way to say it. Or I didn't expect it to wrap up so neatly. I really thought it was gonna. I thought it was gonna lead into Ahsoka. I thought it was gonna lead into Thrawn. I thought we were going that way, and here at the end, like Mando's like all like retired, not retired, but what I mean. He's like all like chilling out on Navarro with his boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
At the end, he's got his feet up, and they have like a nice little house, and I didn't expect that to. I mean, it almost felt like it could have been like the season, like the series finale to an extent, and they lived happily ever after. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was my disappointment. But if you're looking past that, I did enjoy the show. I mean, it was a great show. There's a lot of action, a lot of great sequences and everything. Yeah, I don't know. How about you? Am I?
No, I sort of agree with you. Like this, I like you. I enjoy. Look, I like the show a lot. I like this season. Comparing it to the other 2 seasons, I think this is the weaker of the 3. And it was probably. I think my issue with it more than anything else was that it was good Star Wars. I think.
Yeah.
Right. Like there was like a lot of great Star Wars stuff going on. But it wasn't really I feel like it sort of got it wasn't really Din and Grogu's show this season. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where it was a lot of there was a lot of great world building and a lot of really cool stuff going on. I like what they did with the Mandalorians, and we've said this before. Like, I never really cared about Mandalorians before this show, and now all of a sudden I'm interested in them. So it was cool to kind of get all of that story about them taking back the Bo-Katan and them taking back the Mandalore and all that kind of stuff. But I do feel like we sort of got shortchanged because I like like we've said in the last show, Grogu sort of took a back seat all season.
Right. Yeah.
It really wasn't his. Like season 1 was all about like, who is this kid, right?
Yeah. Right.
Season 2 was all about, well, we got to get this kid to Luke, and then season 3 it was sort of like, he's here.
Yeah. Right.
Like here he is too, right? And so it was kind of a bummer. Like it was sort of like all the focus was off of these two. It was on everything else.
Yeah.
And look, I like Bo-Katan, but I was like, I don't need to see a Bo-Katan show.
You're right.
And but but I liked the show. Like I liked I liked the show, and I think you're right. Like there were things that I feel like didn't pay off. Like we got like the Pershing episode was really good.
Oh right, yeah.
The whole episode with Dr. Pershing.
Yeah.
And when we were going into this week before we saw the show, I was like, wow, I wonder how that's gonna tie into all this. And it doesn't at all.
Right.
Like I mean, they sort of like I mean maybe it'll tie into another show, but it doesn't tie in.
I mean, what
like I don't know why we got that whole episode. I mean, it was really good episode. Like I liked that episode a lot. I liked to know what happened to Pershing. I like the Elia Kane stuff. I like the whole like the amnesty program. Like all that stuff was great.
Right.
But I don't know why we got it in this show.
Yeah, like right. There was that whole episode, and like I said, it was very interesting, and I really did like it. But like, the payoff. I thought we were going to get a much larger payoff with Pershing than like I mean, I guess when she turned that dial up, unless we see him again, I assume she just fried his brain, and that was Gideon's way of just taking him off the table. They didn't want we were kind of wondering why she would fry him. We thought they still wanted him in his mind for his tech, but here Gideon wanted him off the table. So
because for Hux, right? Like that's
right.
In the end, that's what like Hux wanted Pershing, and Gideon didn't want to give him Pershing, so they just take him out.
Right, they took him off the board, right? Because he did because Gideon was the one working on his clones, but he wanted them for himself, not for Hux and for for the Emperor and all that stuff. Right. So but it was right. I thought we were going to get a little bit more of a payoff there, just I don't know with what, but just something there. I
just thought it would tie in some fashion. Like I was when all the when they walk into that one room and there's all the clones there, I was like, oh, this is the Pershing moment, and it,
it just like, oh, and I mean, I thought I thought the Mythosaur, I thought that was going to play some kind of role.
Right.
I thought we'd see it again. I thought, like everybody, there was a thing online, like everybody assumed by the end of it, like somebody was going to be riding it, whether it's Bo-Katan or Din or even Baby Yoda, right. Figured somebody, I thought we'd see that again. The Darksaber gets crunched, and it was just sort of like, oh, like
the Darksaber I thought was the strangest thing.
I was baffled by that.
I was like, this thing is like, they introduced this thing in season 1. It's this thing, right? Like they didn't need to introduce it. They introduced it in season 1. It never really did anything in season 1. The only thing that really happened with it in season 2 was that Din got it.
Right.
And then in season 3, he sort of gives it to her, and then they crush it. Like I don't know why
Right.
that thing was ever introduced.
Right. I mean, right. It was supposed to be the whole, right. Oh, here's the sword that makes you the leader, but right. It's like, they sort of set up the fight between Din and Bo-Katan, and then
And then
through a loophole, but Din's like, oh no, you earned it back. It's yours now, and then right then it gets crushed. And I'm like, on one hand, I mean, for the future of the Mandalorians, I guess it's good that they don't have a magic sword now that proves there's a leader. But I was just like, huh. I'm just like, after all that, you're just gonna crush. Even Gideon, like, I'm like, why would he crush it? Didn't he want to have it back too? Like, it just was,
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
That was really strange. The whole Darksaber thing, because I think, and maybe a part of it is us. Like we built this thing up. I was like, Din's got the saber, and now Bo-Katan's gonna have to fight him for it. And there's gonna be this whole thing, and then they were just like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, right.
But it's like, I don't think we jumped to that conclusion. They led us there.
I mean,
by Moff Gideon saying, "Oh, well, you can't just give it to her. She's got to win it in combat," which was never really a thing until that moment.
Right, because before that, because Sabine gave it to Bo-Katan in Rebels,
right.
And then all of a sudden Moff Gideon's like, no, you have to win it in combat, and we're like, oh, so I feel like they're backpedaling on how, how Bo-Katan got it from Sabine, and I don't know,
Yeah, the whole Darksaber. I mean, I'm not sad it's gone, because it's like you said, like I think it was just a thing,
right?
Maybe
they'll, for all we're thinking it's crushed, but then next season could start up and we fixed it. You know what I mean? Like,
and it could just be that they were like, you know what, I don't care about the Darksaber anymore. What we really care about is the Mythosaur, right? Like maybe that's what it was. It was like, oh, we got a much better thing to deal with.
Maybe that
a much cooler MacGuffin, right?
Yeah, maybe that.
And
right.
I don't know. I just the Darksaber thing was just strange.
Yeah, right. So I'm curious too. Like, like I said, like I thought I didn't like. I mean, Moff Gideon, we didn't see a body, but so like he got enveloped in that. That was pretty cool when they crashed that giant ship down, and that was really
cool.
And they Grogu doing the whole force shield, and that was really cool. But I mean, Gideon may have survived. So there's that, but I didn't expect it to just end that neatly. I thought it was gonna, I really thought Thrawn was gonna. I said, and there wasn't an end credit scene. I thought for sure.
Right.
I read there was supposed to be one, and there wasn't. So I have bad information on my part. But then I figured Thrawn, they would tease him. I don't know. I don't know what I thought, but I thought it was going to be, I thought there's be a lot more momentum to Thrawn returning, which would have led to Ahsoka, which would have, so
yeah.
And then now it's almost like, so Din goes now. Din's the marshal for Navarro, right? So then
IG.
Oh, that's right.
Marshal. He's just freelancing.
That's right. He's going to work for the. Oh, that's right.
Right.
I'm sorry. Right. He's going to work with Carson Teva with the New Republic.
Yeah.
On a case by case basis.
Yes.
Right. And then IG-11 is
the marshal.
Right. The marshal. Right. But so part of me was like, oh, because they had that Rangers of the New Republic show announced before the whole Cara Dune debacle thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, did they are they going to use those scripts now? And did they rework it so they could
I think so. I think
right. That's kind of what I thought.
Like, I think what happened. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. I think so at the end, when she's like, well, it's like, when Grogu becomes Din Grogu or Grogu Din or whatever he is.
Yes. Yeah, right. I forgot about that.
And then she's like, well, now you two go off and have your own adventures. Thanks for all the help, but you can go now.
Yeah, right.
And so it's kind of like, I feel like it's getting back to where it was, like now we're going back to, okay, now it's Din and Grogu. We did all this Mandalorian stuff. Now it's just going to be Din and Grogu again. And I'm cool with that, but like, yeah, it just I don't know. The whole season was a little strange. It really
Yeah.
was. It was like it wasn't bad, but
right.
the whole season was a little strange.
Well, it got a little off track because of all the Mandalorian stuff. Is
Yeah.
really what it comes down to, right? And like for a little while there, I thought that Din was going to become the leader of the Mandalorians. I thought that's
Yeah.
where they were going with it, and maybe that's where they thought they were going with it at some point. But then, the character, that's not what he's interested in. He just wants to. At this point, it seems like he wants to just raise his boy, and
Yeah.
like that. So, I don't know. It would have been neat to see him be a little bit more integral to the Mandalorian stuff, but at the same time, I'm happy where it ended up.
I'm happy he's back being on his
yeah.
own.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of made fun of it earlier, but I really did like that scene at the very end where he's sitting there on this front porch with his feet up and Grogu's playing in the pond, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, I liked that. I thought that was cool, and like you said, it was back to basics almost. And now he's still he's not a bounty hunter. He's what do we say? He's not the marshal, but he's
a freelance.
Freelancing
for the New Republic.
Yes,
yeah. But I do wonder if he's now like, if those scripts that were supposed to be for Gina Carano are now going to be for him.
Yes. I mean,
I think that's
and him, and then Carson Teva, and maybe IG-11 is
right.
So IG-11 is the marshal. IG-12 was when Grogu was driving him, right? Because remember they renamed him IG-12 for a little bit.
Yes.
But I think when they said, "Oh, IG-11's our marshal now," I think they.
Yes, I think he's back to right. You're right.
Yeah. He got it. He looks a little different. Got a new paint job, but he's
Yeah.
So
well, he's got the marshal stripes. That's what they.
Is that what that was? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool then.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe right. I'm sure he'll team up with Din at some point to do some stuff like that, and then I guess right. Din and Grogu will go do some stuff. Maybe Marshall Carson Teva will do some stuff with them.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah, because I ended up really liking him. So he's cool.
Yeah. So it was it was an odd season. I didn't dislike it. Happy that we got like R5D4. Right?
I know,
right? Who knew? Right?
So, I forgot about that. So
who knew that R5D4 was going to be like a hero?
Right? How funny was that?
That was great. So. Does he own R5D4 now? Is R5D4 at the little house, the homestead with them?
Somebody said, I read online that yes, people think that he's with him at the house now.
All right, that needs to happen.
Yeah, somebody said when you see his ship or something, R5D4's like, I forget when they showed it, but apparently when one of the scenes R5D4 is in the back when they show it maybe coming into land or something like that. So I assume he's there. So that's pretty cool. I like the R5D4 angle. How funny was that when like he's like all plugged in and like trying to hide from the mouse droid? They all come out like a bunch, and they have their little police lights on, like they're like trying to ram him. I thought that was
great. That was a good scene,
and that was like as silly and as that was like so Star Wars, like like yes, it was just I was laughing pretty hard at that. That was really cracking me up.
Yeah, that was cool. So I really want to see R5D4 be a part of the show. That would be become his droid. That would really be cool.
Right, that'd be a lot of fun. I think.
Yeah.
He's got to be because he's the he fits in the new he's the astromech for the ship and all that stuff. So I think why at this point why wouldn't why would you not use him?
Yeah. And look, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be judgy on our guy Din Djarin,
right?
But he's the single dad. He's got the sports ship out back,
right.
But now he's like a father. He's got Grogu. He's got R5. He really needs the minivan of starships.
Right. He's got to get that. Yeah. He's got to track down a new Razor Crest or something.
Yeah. He needs the. Yeah. He's got to go to the minivan now. He's the dad.
Yeah, I know. Right?
You can keep the sporty one.
Keep that,
but...
keep that parked off to the side. But that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So, I thought it was good. I mean, yeah. Of the two finales we saw last week, I think I like Picard better.
Right. Yeah.
But this was good. I think it wraps up the season. It's just, I think that was my issue with it, is that it's just I feel like they took a back seat to all this other stuff that was going on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it felt a little disjointed just in terms of, right, like and I mean, and to be fair, I guess all these shows, like, we said that about Book of Boba Fett, and I mean, like, it's like they're it's a show, and then they're trying to tell these other stories within the show, and sometimes it feels a little disjointed. Whereas, like, some days you're like, I really wish we just had a Star Wars show, and then it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, it could just, if you just called it the Star Wars show, and then you could tell all these stories, and it wouldn't be as jarring when all of a sudden you go and spend an episode with Dr. Pershing, or what I mean, like something like that.
Well, I wonder if that's not part of it too. Is that I think this show sets up a lot, right? Like, that's to come,
right?
And maybe that's part of what its problem was, that it was like.
True.
Right. They were spending a lot of time doing stuff that really didn't, they're setting up other things.
Yeah.
And so it got,
Right. That's true too.
I mean, like, just as Book of Boba Fett suffered because Book of Boba Fett was setting up Mandalorian, I feel like Mandalorian may be suffering because it was sort of used to set up something else.
Yeah, right. And it might not be obvious now, but you're right.
Right.
Once we start watching Ahsoka, then we might be like, oh, that's what,
Right.
Yeah.
So
no, interesting. Right. I didn't dislike it, but it was just, like I said, it was sort of like, oh, okay, this is different. This isn't what I expected. So, still the Star Wars show, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's still I think among my favorite things that they've done since. Since Disney's taken it over. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. By far, as much as I still say, as much as I really, really love Andor, I still like Mandalorian better because it's much more classic Star Wars.
Yeah.
Andor's really good, but it's like a drama. I mean, I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
right. It's heavier.
It's heavy, and I totally like it and enjoy it. But nothing beats it's just Star Wars.
Yeah, this is like pure action.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and silly stuff, and
right.
And everything that makes up Star Wars. So
yeah.
So now we're gonna jump over to we're gonna jump over there. So we can just touch on. So they didn't at Celebration for Mandalorian. They didn't. I don't think they officially said anything about season 4, as far as I remember. But everyone's already talking about season 4, so maybe it's just a given. I don't remember them being like, I don't remember there being like a fanfare, like, oh, there's season 4. But
they had them out. I know that he was there. Pedro Pascal was there, but I don't remember. I don't know what happened. A lot of the Celebration stuff I'm still behind on. Honestly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I read I saw some of the stuff. We were talking before the show. Like, I tried to go find the panels, and they're apparently they're gone now. So I don't know if I saw parts of them and just got lucky when Celebration was actually happening, or what happened. But,
the only panel I actually saw was I saw the Bad Batch panel.
Oh, okay, all right.
And it was okay. I mean, they didn't reveal any new and dramatic stuff. It was just interesting to hear them talk about the season and characters and stuff.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, the only I saw, I saw the Lucasfilm panel, but only the movie part of it. But that's gone now too. I don't know where what happened to that. So here, let's talk about. So up now on the screen now we're going to play the Ahsoka trailer. So this was sort of like, I mean, there's all kinds of news out of Celebration.
Yeah,
but this was visually, they released 2 trailers to everybody, basically to the internet, and Ahsoka was the one, and then Star Wars Visions was the other one. But for Ahsoka here, this is our first look at it, and coming right out of Mandalorian, and yeah, I got super excited for. I think one of the reasons I thought Mando was going to lead into this is because this looks so good.
Yeah.
Like this really, it looks good. The Rebels crew makes appearances, so that's very exciting. There's new bad guys. I don't know who.
Yeah.
I know their names are out there, and I forgot to call them up. But there's um their lightsabers apparently are orange, which is on purpose.
Okay.
So because that was
I remember discussion about I heard discussion about the orange lightsabers.
Well, I remember
that was intentional.
Yeah. So first someone's like, "Oh, they're using the real ones and they're not red enough," and then they're like, "No, they're orange on purpose because like yes, they're bad guys, but maybe they're not quite as bad as you think."
Yeah.
So but anyway, right. So there's all kinds of stuff, but I mean, this this just the trailer looks really good. I mean, I don't know, there's Ezra. They see Ezra in the hologram.
I mean, basically, we've basically now seen the entire Ghost crew, haven't we?
Yes.
Except for, we saw the hologram of Ezra, but we haven't seen. But we see Hera, we see Sabine, we see Chopper, we saw Zeb in Mandalorian,
right? Yep.
And that was it, right?
That's it.
And then Ezra,
and then right, yeah. And then we haven't seen from the Rebels finale Hera's son. His name's Jason, I believe.
Oh, right.
We haven't seen him, but when they did, I watched the epilogue today of Rebels, and Sabine has this whole and just kind of runs through where everybody ended up, and she mentions Jason, but I'm not sure when, like, it's kind of a little bit unclear when he was born, so like I'm not sure if they're going to try to say like, oh, he was born shortly after Kanan died, or if they're like, oh, she's an alien, so her pregnancy took longer, so they might be able to have him born later. But I don't know. I don't know. Who knows how the space sex works?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, doesn't she? Because in that little epilogue, doesn't she end up at the Battle of Endor?
Yes, she says she fought in the Battle of Endor.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So I don't know. Like when this show takes place, when Ahsoka, maybe Jason's there, but he's just a baby, so maybe he's not on, maybe he's off camera, or maybe he'll be there, and I don't know. I'm curious to see how they handle that part of it, but I don't know who that guy with the beard is, and even the blonde girl, but both of them, he looks really cool. I don't know, I got excited for a minute because when they first showed him. Speaking of Heir to the Empire and all that stuff, so in the original books there was a character called Joris Cyboth, I think it was his name, and when they come upon him, he's like, I'm a Jedi Master, and remember this is back before the prequels and all that stuff, so you're like, holy crap, a Jedi Master, what who's in the book, and then you find out later that he's actually a clone of a Jedi Master.
Oh, okay.
In the books, and then he's crazy and he's mad, and that's the story goes in that direction. But when I first saw this guy with a beard, for a brief moment, I'm like, oh my god, is it going to be like, are they inserting that character into Ahsoka somehow? But they did release his name, and it's not the same character. It's somebody.
Okay.
So, but I was excited. I got excited for that. But I'm still excited to see, who this guy is, and you see Ahsoka there going into a Jedi temple. Sabine here is on Lothal, I guess, where a lot of Rebels took place.
Well, that little ship, isn't that the ship that used to come out of the Ghost?
Oh, is that what that is?
I think it is. And the only reason I know that is because my son had the Lego set.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that's the ship that came out of the Ghost.
I think you might be right, because I think Chopper plugged into that too, and that he was that when they show him, he's plugged into it.
Yeah.
The ship. Yeah. Oh, okay, that makes sense then. Because I was trying when they showed Chopper, I'm like, what's he? I was like, what's he plugged into? That's not the Ghost.
Yeah. So so they must be holding the Ghost for.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
I mean, is this? When is this comes out in May, right?
I think this is August.
Oh, okay, it's later. Okay.
So I think we have a little while yet, but by the end of the summer, August, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. And then someone was saying, like, here, this scene here, if you're watching on YouTube with Ahsoka, that almost looks like in the background there, it looks like the world between worlds. Like,
Oh yeah, I did hear people talking about that.
yeah. And I really should go back and rewatch that because, like, I kind
Yeah,
of,
I really don't remember much about Rebels. I really
I
don't.
mean, I remember parts of it, but I remember at the time, yeah, with Ahsoka and stuff, I remember, and like, she fights Vader, and then it appears that she gets killed fighting Vader, but then Ezra somehow rescues her using this world between worlds. So I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's like it's for Star Wars. It's actually really weird because it's like, well, is there time travel or like is it like what happens there? And so I kind of wanted to go back and just, especially seeing it what seems to be in the background of this trailer. I kind of wanted to go back and rewatch that episode and be like, well, what
yeah.
did happen there? You know,
The thing I remember about Rebels that I liked and that I expected, one of the things I liked that they introduced in Rebels that I liked was the idea. There was a couple of things. It was like the idea that certain Jedi were good at certain. Not all Jedi
yes,
were good at all the same things exactly the same way.
right,
Certain Jedi were good at certain things, right? And I thought, and I remember when Rebels ended, I thought, we started getting the sequels. I thought what they were where they were heading is that because one of the things that they introduced in Rebels was that Ezra had a real connection with animals,
right.
right? So that was, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And if you go down that path, you could be like, well, this guy's really good at like healing people, and this guy's really good at, like I thought that would be like an interesting way to go with the Force, but they seem to have abandoned that concept,
Yeah, as of
right?
right now, yeah, it seems like that kind of got left behind a little bit.
You
But
know,
I mean, even in the prequels, they talk about there's the living force, and then the I remember Qui-Gon saying to Obi-Wan, there's like the living force, and then some other. Remember, what does he say?
yeah,
But even back then, they started introducing that stuff, and then I thought that was sort of an extension of it when they were doing Rebels with him being really good with the animals, and I thought that was like I'm saying the living force. I think that's what it is. But but yes, I remember thinking the same thing. Like, oh, this is kind of they're going to start.
yeah,
Make,
because they had
yeah,
some like they had some sort of like concepts in Rebels that were sort of out there that I
yeah,
liked, right? Like they had the
yeah,
Bendu was
yeah,
sort of a
right,
thing, and it was weird, but I kind of liked it,
yeah,
and the whole thing with Ezra and the animals I thought was really interesting, and then this world between worlds stuff
right,
where it was sort of like, and that was what it was like. The, t- the temple that he found, or I guess I think he finds a couple of different temples, but the temple he found in Rebels, like, was a portal to the world between worlds or something like
right,
that. And like, yeah, like Ahsoka goes to fight Vader at one of these temples, and then like the temple collapses and everything, and they're like, oh well, I guess that's the end of Ahsoka. But yeah, then he goes into a temple at the end or towards the end of the series, and in that world between worlds, he like manages to pull her out of there,
right,
and that's how she survived. Yeah, it's there's some sort of like weird concepts that
right, right.
I sort of like.
Right.
Um,
It was yes.
like I think they need a little bit more work, but I kind of like the
Yeah.
where they're headed with them.
Yeah, I remember for like Star Wars, it was jarring because I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah,
We've never seen anything like this before in Star Wars, but I didn't dislike it. I just remember it threw me.
yeah,
And actually, to be perfectly honest, back then I was still a little bit because Rebels was before we got the whole storyline with Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order, didn't it? Wasn't it? Didn't when she left the Jedi Order, wasn't that like when we got the lost episodes of Clone Wars?
no.
No?
She, if memory serves, she leaves before all that.
Okay.
And
Also,
then I like
yeah.
I think it may be the last season they did she left, and maybe is that where it ended originally?
Jeez, I can't remember where.
And then they came out with the
Lost.
I don't remember. I don't remember, but I don't think. Yeah, I don't think her leaving was in the Lost episodes.
Okay, I can't remember exactly the timeline of that, but I know when Rebels was on in real time, I know I still wasn't 100% in love with Ahsoka. Like I'm like when she shows up in Rebels, I'm like, no, here's Ahsoka. You know what I mean? Like just because I've come to really like the character and enjoy her, but I remember from Clone Wars, it was like she just felt forced, and like I was always very much just like I'm like, how can Anakin have a Padawan? Why have we never heard of her? She just felt very inserted and very forced into there. But as time's gone on, I obviously have really grown to like the character. But so when she turns up in Rebels, I'm like, all right, here's Ahsoka. And then when he rescues her from the world between worlds, I'm like, guess they didn't want her to be dead. You know, like I remember just it was being more cynical about it. But once you get past that, and like I said, now I like the character. So now I'm more like, oh well, now instead of looking at it like, oh, they wanted her to be alive, I'm like, well, all right, well, how did that work? Now that's why I want to go back and watch it from that standpoint. Like, all right, how did that work? What was their thought process on that? Type of thing. So
I thought, I didn't love her in Clone Wars. I thought she got more interesting. I think for me, the character of Ahsoka got more interesting when she left the Jedi.
Yeah.
That's when I think she like that whole like break with the Jedi and then her leaving the Jedi Order. That's when I thought she really got interesting. And I like the idea that there's this person running around who knows who Darth Vader is.
Right. Yeah.
And he knows she's out there, and she knows he's out there, and I kind of like that,
right?
Kind of dynamic, and like I mean, obviously, like Obi-Wan knows who he is now,
right?
But it's just like it's like I like that there's these people out there that know who he is, and that's got to stick in his crawl, and
right.
Like so I like that,
Yeah, I know. Now the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think I'm going to go back and rewatch, if not all of Rebels, but those episodes.
Yeah,
because a lot of that was just I remember even at the time. I think at the time even I was like, between Ahsoka and then they brought back Darth Maul and like a lot of like I remember really liking the Rebels characters, and then they started bringing back Clone Wars stuff, which I didn't really love the Clone Wars show, and so. I remember a lot of it. Like I know there's a lot on my part, a lot of eye rolling. I'm like, it's Darth Maul. Not for anything. I was like, oh, here's the Mandalorians again. Like it was stuff like that. So I should really go back and rewatch it because now I've become interested in that stuff now. I mean, based on the live action stuff, I've become interested in it and find.
Well, it's funny because at the time, and I remember even having a conversation with somebody like online about this, where at the time I was like, do you think we'll ever get to a point where you have to watch this stuff, like this animated stuff? And the guy was like, oh no, that's never going to be necessary. And now like not that it's necessary, but it's like, I mean that stuff matters now.
Yeah,
and like I remember watching it at the time. There's Rebels suffered from the same sort of problems that Clone Wars had, which is that there's a lot of episodes. A lot of them are kind of fluff or filler.
Right. Yeah.
And
they're very similar to Bad Batch, how we were saying there's some that drive the story and push it forward, and other ones are just like, all right, here's a side episode.
Right. And the ones that are really good are very good.
Yeah.
But like but it was funny. Like I remember I kept trying to get my son to watch into it because he was at that age. And he wasn't even interested in it. So it was like I ended up like watching it all myself.
Right.
And and it's like I think the ending of that show is really good.
Right.
And I do think I think I liked Rebels more than I liked Clone Wars at the time.
Yeah, I certainly did. Yeah.
But they deal with they deal with some sort of different concepts than Star Wars is known for.
Yeah, they let him be a little bit more. Well, that was, I figure, that was the first cartoon. That was after Disney had him, so that was the first cartoon
Yeah.
without George. So, maybe they were able to explore some different ideas. That maybe either George never got the touch on, or
Yeah.
that they're like, oh, let's try this, let's try that.
Yeah. Like that Bendu thing was really sort of like out there.
Yeah, right.
That whole, like, he's some sort of, like, I don't know, like half plant, half animal kind of thing. Like, it was really strange.
Right. And he wasn't a Jedi, and he just knew the Force.
You're right.
That,
He was just that was just like like a weird kind of.
Well, they had this whole thing for a little while there, where like they were like, I mean, we even kind of saw with the Last Jedi and different things where they're like they weren't sure if they wanted to stick with like Jedi and Sith, or if they wanted to sort of they started exploring like sort of the other areas of the Force and stuff like that, and maybe.
Well, I think that's what they have to do, because they keep going to this like the Last Jedi thing, and that's
right.
that's got to go.
Yeah,
for storytelling purposes, that's got to be eliminated, because that's what's in, like, the Force is interesting,
right.
like how it works and who can wield it and like that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Whereas, right. If right, you can't. You can only collapse the Jedi so many times, and so many, like you said, Last Jedi, before it gets, you're like, okay, enough of this.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting when, when the Last Jedi, some of the questions that it did raise about where Luke's like, he's like, no, it's time for the. Remember they even in the one trailer, he's like, it's time for the Jedi to die. And he was all bitter and sour. But remember when he was explaining himself, he's like, yeah, it's like the cycle. It's like, and I remember at the time being like, he's not wrong, like it
right.
Was, some interesting ideas that were brought up there. So,
that my issue, like, I would have I wanted to know more about that, right? Like why, and that was always sort of my issue with Luke being on the island. I didn't necessarily care why Luke was on the island. I wanted to know why he was on the island, and not just that he like ran away. And I thought, based on those trailers and stuff like that we were going to find out that Luke was like, that he had rejected the Jedi way,
right,
and that he was on a different
path. He was like finding
understanding,
right. He was finding a better way,
right.
Almost,
and that's what I
say, yeah,
right, and that's what I thought we were going to get to, but we never did. Like that he didn't, and maybe that was what his intent was, but they didn't end up there or whatever.
Yeah,
like that.
Well, yeah, because I even thought that, because I remember, like, like the books were in the old tree, and then Yoda calls down the lighting, and Yoda's like, she knows everything she needs. And like, that's, again, I thought they were kind of going in that direction, like, oh, maybe it's time to move past the Jedi, or past all the trappings of the Jedi, so to speak. But then the next scene, the books are in the drawer, and you're like, oh, all right, like, you're like, I don't know. I thought we were right. I thought we were moving to like the next phase of the Jedi, and then it just kind of, and then it almost seems like they got scared, like I feel like the shot of the books in the drawer was like a panic, like, oh no, wait, she took the books,
she can still learn, she can still be a Jedi.
I feel like they panicked and got scared of that, which, but now maybe, well, we're going to talk about that coming up, but maybe in the future with Rey and the new movie, maybe that'll be part of the storyline. It'll be like, oh, she here's how, she's building this new Jedi Order, but here's a different way of doing it,
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, are we done with Ahsoka?
Yeah. Or we might as well. I know. I kind of went right, rolled into it anyway.
There we go.
So I just put this up here, and it turns out it's wrong anyway. But so at the Lucasfilm panel, they initially had up the these different logos, like the Old Republic, the High Republic, Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and then the New Republic and Rise of the First Order. They had those up, and then when they announced the other movies, they added in the future, they added the New Jedi Order, which is going to be not necessarily the name of Rey's movie, and the next movie,
It's
but
the era.
the era, and then they added in the Dawn of the Jedi at the other side of it, which is going to be a movie at the other end of it, which is going to deal with like basically the birth of the Jedi and the birth of the
Yeah.
Force and all that stuff. So that's a convoluted way of saying is like, hey, they announced new movies at Celebration, and so they announced 3 movies. I kind of went over both of them, but so the first one that we think we're getting is going to be the New Jedi Order. Not again the era, not necessarily the name. Daisy Ridley's back as Rey. I forget the director's name.
Yeah,
but this was what Damien Lindelof was working on, and now there's the new guy is Stephen Knight, and he is known for he's known for some TV shows, which I'm totally blanking on right now, but he's well thought of. So I think it's in good hands. It's going to take place 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, and it's going to deal with Rey building the Jedi Order. So, what that means, I don't know. Who the bad guys are going to be, I don't know. But it seems like that one's the furthest along, and so it seems like that's what we're going to do.
Right.
I personally was excited by it because I think it's important. I think I was excited about this movie, and then the other ones we'll talk about in a minute. But I was excited because, like, I think you need some big tentpole type movies in the different eras to sort of say, here's what's going on in this era. Then you can come in and. So, like the Rogue Squadron movie, they keep that was on and off and all that stuff, right? So, for a moment, pretend that takes place in the same era during the New Jedi Order era. Well, once you have this big tentpole movie up that says, "Here's the state of the galaxy. Here's our main character. Here's Rey," then you can insert that in underneath it. Then you can say, here's the state of the galaxy. We're going to tell this little story underneath it now. I shouldn't say little story. We're going to tell this movie underneath it and sort of start adding to it. I think that's important that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, so we have the Rey movie would be going forward, and I think that's also important for for business decisions. I mean, you have all these kids that know all these characters, and you're going to make the same mistake, and I'll say mistake in air quotes because it's like, but like Return of the Jedi ended and Lucas was done with Star Wars, so we missed out on 30 years of stories with those characters, and then the prequels ended, and same thing. He because of the numbering, he was locked out of telling any real stories there. I mean, he did Clone Wars as a cartoon, but we never got to see any more stories because of I always thought we were going to see a story of Darth Vader hunting down Jedi. I don't know how exciting that would have been or how uplifting that would have been, but I thought, I always thought we were going to see that. So I think it's smart for Lucasfilm and Disney to say, you know what, we got Rey here or Daisy Ridley here. She wants to work. Let's do this. Let's push forward. And then there's a rumor now that Finn might be involved, that John Boyega may be coming back. So what I was thinking is, and this is my own opinion, is that I was thinking is maybe we might get like the next movie might be like, all right, well, this is Rey's movie. Kind of like they did with the sequel trilogy, where it's like the first one was Han's movie, then Luke's, and then it was supposed to be Leia's movie. So I was thinking like the first one might be Daisy or a Rey's movie, and then you might get a Finn movie, and then maybe we'll get a Poe movie. I don't even know if they're going to number them or not, but it could be something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're moving forward. It is kind of a bummer that for us, the OG Star Wars fans, it's kind of a bummer that she's going to end up doing what Luke failed to do, which is a bummer, right?
Yes.
Like
right.
I'm glad they're moving forward with it, but like I would have liked to have seen Luke succeed at doing that,
Right. Yes.
So I do hope that they do the right thing and they bring Mark Hamill back for this.
Yeah.
As they can bring him back as a Force ghost and maybe like a mentor kind of thing. Like that would be nice. I think that would go a long way to kind of
start to smooth a lot of things over.
Start to smooth over some of the stuff that people didn't like about the sequels. And then you could still have him it could still be Daisy's movie.
Oh, sure,
But
right.
but he's just there. Like that would kind of be that would I think that would be a nice. I don't know that they'll do that, but that's what I would like to see.
I would hope they would. Right. I mean, at the very least, in The Last Jedi, they bring in Yoda. You know what I mean? So at the very least, make it maybe she's at a really low point, and then Luke shows up, and he's like, "I know I haven't seen you in 15 years, but I figured I'd pop in."
Yeah, right.
It could be something like that. I mean, I kind of would think it would be neat. One of the things that was in the before Rise of Skywalker, it was called Duel of the Fates, I believe.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was going to be in the movie is Luke was going to be in there as a Force ghost and basically be haunting Kylo Ren and like kind of giving him crap as a Force ghost.
Yeah, right.
And I found that fascinating. And I kind of, I would kind of almost wish we had saw that. I think that would have been really
that would be cool
to see. And so on the flip side, if Mark Hamill's still available and, we see him offering advice to Rey, I think that would be really cool. I think that'd be really neat to see.
Yeah, I think that would help. Like I said, kind of smooth things over. I don't know if they'll go there.
Yeah,
but
right. Whether he's a main character or just pops in for sage advice or whatever.
Right.
But still, and I mean, they might as well take advantage of it because rather than a Clone Wars cartoon or now where they're doing the stuff with the Mandalorian with the cloning and for the Emperor and all, well, rather than having to rely on some other thing to do it, just make more movies and tell the story that way,
right.
Maybe they can retroactively make the sequels better,
Right. Well, that's what I'm sort of, maybe Luke can explain why was on the island, what he was doing. And
right.
Because we just never really got that.
Right.
We never really got an explanation for any of that.
Yeah, right. He could be like, oh, I did run away after Kylo turned, or after Ben Solo turned to the dark side. I did run away, but but I was researching all these Jedi texts and I thought I could find a better way. And even if it turns out I couldn't, or it turns out just a much more elaborate explanation. Rather than, oh, it was a moment of weakness and then I ran away. You're like, dude, what, come on, man.
Right.
You're like, all right, that's fine, but the more time goes on, a lot of people I know were upset that he was on the island and like kind of gave up. And I don't have a problem with that because it mirrors Yoda.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but I have a problem with that we never, that we were told in flashback what happened versus I wish we had seen what happened. And I've always
right.
So,
yeah.
So
Agreed.
Anyway, so Rey's movie is the first one we talked about. The second movie is the Mandalorian Dave Filoni movie verse, which is Dave's gonna be in charge of it. He's gonna direct it, and it's gonna sort of culminate a lot of the storylines from the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka. It's gonna culminate in a lot of these different things. I don't necessarily know it's gonna end those series per se, but it's gonna, I get the impression that it's gonna sort of be like the end of maybe Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think they might be building towards that.
Okay.
There's in the Ahsoka trailer, she mentions again Heir to the Empire, and I think they may be taking those series of novels and adapting them to the current canon, but also inserting some of these heroes like the Mandalorian, Ahsoka in place of the original heroes and telling the story that way.
Okay.
But again, I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool that they that they're gonna let him have his own movie because everybody loves him.
That's really And it's sort of like I got it sounds like it's sort of going to be like their version of the Avengers.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of brings everybody together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm right. Which will be cool. It's like
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's really a Mandalorian if you bring in Boba Fett, because I thought Boba Fett was going to show up at the finale of Mandalorian.
I was sure he was going to show up.
So maybe they're saving him for something else. Maybe they're saving him for that. I don't know. And then Ahsoka will be there, and if you have all the Rebels crew, they'll be there. we have the Skeleton Crew TV show that's happening. So who knows what's going to happen with those guys? Maybe they'll end up there. So that's actually, now that you say it, that's pretty interesting that'll be like the Avengers, the Avengers of the Mandoverse type of thing or something. That could be pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm excited about that. I'm happy for Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely earned it.
Yeah.
So that'll be really cool.
Right. And then I believe Favreau is going to be involved as well, like as executive producer or something like that. So, but that's great because that means, Favreau is a pro, and if he can help Dave, I really get the impression now that they're setting up Dave Filoni to, I don't want to say take over because I'm not sure if that's what he wants, but to be the creative director, be the visionary, be that guy, So it feels like they're leaning into that and leaning on him for that now. So I'm kind of hoping that's where they're going. So it'll be cohesive, So, and then the third and last movie they announced was in the Dawn of the Jedi era. And this was the one which will be about the birth of the Force. And they're bringing in the guy that did the new Indiana Jones movie. His name is James Mangold, and he is going to direct it. I think he's also involved with writing it. Like, it's his idea. First and foremost, I'm like, well, this must bode very well for Indiana Jones if they're bringing this guy in and giving him a Star Wars movie. So I was excited about that. But also, it's kind of neat. Like, he described it as like biblical, and he described it as like, well, who was the first guy that figured out like, what's the Force? Like, what is this? How does this work? And, basically then if that's the case, maybe was he the first Jedi? And, sort of like that. And, it's not necessarily something I ever thought about, but it kind of sounds like it could be neat.
I think of all of them, I'm most intrigued about this one.
Right.
I like, this could go in some really interesting directions. Like, so, and again, it could show us, all right, so sort of like what we were just talking about with Luke, like, there's a different way,
right?
Then like the Jedi Order sort of evolved into what it became, but like maybe we'll see in this show that that's not how it was intended. It just sort of got there. And maybe, and then, it would be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see this, like the beginnings, and then you have the date, the Rey, the new Rey movie, and where it ends up.
Like they can
I think that's interesting,
they can sort of play, if they're smart, they'll play them off of each other,
right?
It's like, here's how it was in the ancient times, and then here's throughout the history, you're like, especially during the prequels, here's where they lost their way,
right?
And here's gradually then, and then here's this this young Jedi trying to rebuild the order, and how's she going to do that? How is she going to accomplish that based on what we know happened 100, I don't know how, thousands of years ago.
Like how did the Sith come about? And like,
right.
Like all of that stuff. Like, I think it's a really interesting concept to explore. Like, it depends on how they deal with it, but like, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting, it's something interesting to look into,
I agree with that. I was interested and curious. So there's that Clone Wars episodes. There's a couple of them where they go and like Anakin goes, and I forget the name of the planet.
Oh, the Mortis trilogy.
That's it. But he finds like this guy called the Father, and then there's a son and a daughter, and they're sort of like the embodiment of the light and dark sides of the Force, and it gets really like it's
really like really high concept stuff.
And
but
so,
that is among the best episodes of the Clone Wars. Like it's like a trilogy of episodes that are very good.
That's another one I want to go rewatch, because I remember at the time being like, what is happening? You know what I mean? Because it was so out there. And again, it was just something that you just never thought about. The Force was like, thinly veiled, like magic. You know what I mean? Like, it was like kind of like that. And then with this happening, I was like, what? I just remember being very like, it was too much for me at the time. I'm like, wait, I don't know what I feel about this,
Yeah,
So
so that they could go down that. Like, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to mine there. I think.
yeah, right, where they
If
could,
they do it right, it could go in really interesting directions.
yeah. So, but like I said, I was happy that they announced, and now again, take everything with a grain of salt because
Right.
we know how Star Wars works now, and they like to announce stuff. But I really got the impression that um, they kind of figured it out, that they finally figured out, like, look, basically past, I don't want to say present, but it's like, past, current TV show stuff, future, or whatever you want to, but they, and they're giving everybody a little taste. It's like, all right, if you like the sequels and you're young, maybe if you're younger people and that's what you grew up with, here, this is for you, and if you're fans of the current shows, this is for you. And then, hey, we got something basically brand new in the past that no one's seen before. So yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because and I don't know if I mentioned this in the last show or not, but like, I think I had read that Kathleen Kennedy sort of has been told that, and I don't know what the deadline is. I don't know if it was like 2025 or what, but like, what I've read is that she's been sort of instructed that if there is not a movie, out by then there's going to be some changes.
Okay, all right, that's interesting.
So I don't know how true that is, but
right.
That's what I read, and I think it's not wrong. I mean,
no.
they need to have some movies. I mean,
right. Yeah. Well, yes, it's been a while, and then not only that, but I mean, yes, there was a huge streaming push for a while there, but then basically they realized, they're like, all right, this isn't going to work how we thought it was. We still need movies. We still need big things. And so it's like, all right, all right, Lucasfilm, get your act together. Let's figure this out. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be this hard. There's tons of creative people out there, So I don't know what prompted it. I don't know how they landed on these 3 movies, but I was very happy with the announcements.
Yeah.
I'm like, because they all make sense. Because before they kept announcing things, like, oh, the Rogue Squadron, oh, Taika Waititi is going to get a movie, but like, that's nice. And at this point, I'm kind of like so on Taika Waititi, but it's like I'd much rather hear the big picture versus the directors. You know what I mean? Like right. So that's what I was happy here. There, it's like, all right, here's the big picture, and then all right, here's some of the creatives involved with it. I thought that was smart.
Yeah, like they have a plan, which is what I think they've lacked up until this point.
Right. And they're announcing individual movies. They're not saying like, oh, it's a trilogy that we're locked into, and it's like, great, do the Rey movie. If it's great and it's successful, and everybody's happy with it, let's do another one. Do another one with Rey, and maybe bring in Finn, or whatever. And same with these other ones. It's like, oh, here's the Dawn of the Force. Great. All right. Well, what are we going to do now? Oh, all right. This was pretty cool. Let's keep this going.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right.
So anyway, that pretty much wraps up the movie side of things.
Okay. Move on to
and the one last thing about the movies, just as an aside, somebody was interviewing Kathleen Kennedy, and she said when the movies come back, they're all going to have the opening crawl.
Oh, okay.
They're going to bring it back. And I just thought that was great news, because to me, it's not a Star Wars movie without the opening crawl. I felt that was sorely missed in Rogue One and in Solo. I mean, I guess they were trying to make the, saga movies. I guess they're trying to make them more special, but nope. I want to see the title the title card, long time ago, Galaxy Far, Far Away, and I want to see an opening crawl. And especially when you're jumping around all these different time periods and all this stuff, I think it's essential. I mean, I think you need it to educate the audience. Like, here's where we are.
It puts you in the
right. It
all
lets
right.
you,
right.
You're like, oh, okay, we're talking about Rey. Got it. Oh, Mandalorian. Got it. Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was just happy to hear that. But anyway, that's the only reason I threw that in there, just because I was very excited to hear that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good news.
And then this still here. This is everything else that was announced at Celebration, and there's not really many surprises here, but we have, let's see. Well, I'll just go in the order we have them up here. So they announced Tales of the Jedi Season 2. That's coming. No word on storyline or anything, just that's on the way.
Okay.
Bad Batch Season 3 and the final season is coming. That was also announced.
Okay. Yeah, right. This is the final, right.
Right. So I guess they'll be wrapping up them. Again, what's going to happen to the clones? Where are they going to end up? I don't know. I mean, if it's anything like everything else, they'll turn up somewhere else down the road, which is fine, but it'll be neat to see how that wraps up. They talked about Skeleton Crew. They did show a video for Skeleton Crew, but I think it was like a behind the scenes the thing. So the Skeleton Crew is Jude Law plays. There's a rumor he might play some sort of Jedi, but he's an adult, obviously. Yeah. And then there's I think 4 kids, and from what I understand, they basically get on a ship and sort of get lost in the universe, and it's sort of their story. So yeah. I'm guessing, I think I may have said this before, I don't know anything else other than that, but I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of hook that'll pull you into it, because it just being like, oh, there's kids on a spaceship with a grown-up doesn't sound very exciting. But if you find out that maybe there's an ex-Jedi and some Force-sensitive children, that becomes interesting all of a sudden.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Grogu, Baby Yoda moment at the end of the first episode to sort of make you sit, be like, oh, this was a fun show, but it kind of gets you excited by it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So then we have Andor Season 2 was announced. I know they did show some video of that. I saw some leaked footage, which I wasn't supposed to see, but I saw something like that. It just looked like more of Andor. It just more good stuff. I'm really looking forward to that. And they said that'll be the last season of Andor, and that'll lead right up to the beginning of Rogue One.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. I love that that's the content.
Yeah. Then we got Star Wars Vision Season 2 was announced. There's a trailer for that we can show in a minute here. Mandalorian, like I said, I don't think they announced Season 4, but people are already talking about it, so I guess that's going to happen. The Acolyte this is set back in... Here, I'm going to go back. This is during the High Republic.
Okay.
And so that's where all right now there's a huge, the book initiative is going on right now. It's all taking place during the High Republic. And I haven't followed along with it. I thought about reading the book. I read maybe a couple of the comics, but all I know is it's sort of like the height of the Jedi. So the Jedi are at their most powerful. They're all dressed in more white robes with kind of gold, gilded type thing. So they're kind of I think it's almost like how you maybe thought the Jedi would be, your mental image of what they wore before the prequels type of thing. So, but this has to deal with, I believe, a dark side or a Sith is the Acolyte. So it's something like that. They did bring her out. I can't remember the actress's name, but they brought her out she was actually dressed as Padme, but they brought her out on the stage. And they also had, what was the, there's going to be a Wookiee in the show. He's going to play a Jedi Master, and he'll be played by the guy that played Chewbacca, Jonas.
Yeah, Jonas Suntamayo or something.
There you go. Yeah, I know. You had it. You have it right.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't that interested in that because I'm not familiar with the High Republic, but after reading about it and seeing that, I thought, I'm like, well, this, and because it's going to be live action, and I thought I got a little bit more excited about it. I got more interested.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to get a story from the Sith perspective.
Yeah,
if that's the way it remains. I don't know if it, you know what I'm saying. It'll that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and I can't. Oh, I did read something, and I mean there will be Jedi in it, and I'm not sure if it's I feel like it might be a Padawan may turn to the dark side, or I feel like it may be. So we might see something like that. I can't remember exactly what I read, but it got me interested in it. Before I'm like, oh, that's nice, that's happening, but it made me stand up and be much more interested.
Right.
And then last, and just Ahsoka, we already talked about. They released that trailer for Ahsoka and stuff, and they didn't announce anything, but I've heard rumors of a season 2 already being talked about. So
Okay.
yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah, right. So yeah, so that was it for the announcements for the TV shows, and then we're just going to play on YouTube now. This is a trailer for the Star Wars Visions. Some of the stuff in here looks like this stuff right here looks really cool.
I was sort of impressed with this trailer. I mean, I never finished watching the first.
Oh, you did?
Season of
Okay.
Vision. Like I think I watched most of them, but I didn't watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
And some of them were quite good. I mean, I maybe I did finish watching. I don't remember, but like some of them I didn't love, and some of them I thought were really good. So
yeah, and I was the same way. Some of them I remember some of them were really good. Like the very first one I remember really
was really good. Yeah,
yeah, and some of the other ones were good. Some of them were just kind of off the wall. And then I found I like the ones that were more closely aligned to like traditional with real Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like they could actually be happening within the universe. And then there's some other ones that went way they used elements of Star Wars, but it just was its own thing. And they're the ones that I was a little bit more like, I don't know about this,
Yeah.
Now apparently the hook for this first season was they were all Japanese movie studios. This time around, they're worldwide. So they're from all over the world. They're like, I know I just saw something, but it's like, there's an Irish studio, there's like a Korean studio, there's, Spanish, so you name it. So it's all over the world and stuff. And some of the, looking at it, some of the stuff looks really cool. Like, and
there's like stop motion.
Or
it looks like it's stop motion at least. I don't know that it is, but
people were making the joke. It's that Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I think it's that studio that did the
okay,
because they kind of have that look about them.
Yes,
and I think it's that same studio. So, that looks pretty cool. But I personally, I hope. Like I said, I like it when it's stuff that could happen in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
As opposed to off the wall. So I'm hoping that maybe they stick more towards that, just because it's to me, it's, if you're going to do all this, it's a lot more fun to say like, oh, if it's that popular or if it's really cool, you're like, well, let's do more of this. Let's make this count. I mean, there is fun to be had with just throwaway stuff too. So.
Yeah, I some of this looks really good.
Yeah, the more you look at it, the more you start seeing different things, and
Yeah, maybe I did finish watch. I don't remember. I don't.
I remember. Yeah, I can't remember if you did or not. I remember talking when we were doing the shows and stuff, talking about it. I remember, I remember you saying like you get to a certain point and you're just sort of like, it wasn't. It got to be a little bit too much, but I can't remember now either. And I can't remember the order they were in, because I remember, like I said, I remember some of them really I still remember, and then other ones I've forgotten about, whether they were forgettable or I just forgot about them. I can't remember.
Yeah, but this I thought this looked. I'm more interested in this than I thought I would be.
Yeah,
based on what I'm looking at, so that looks really good.
Yeah, and at the very least, I enjoy the different animation styles. There's a show on Netflix called Love, Death, Robots, I think it's called, something like that. And it's a bunch of just like short little sci-fi stories, but it's animated stuff, but they're all done in different animation styles. And it's the same thing. I'll watch those, and sometimes the story's really good, but sometimes the animation's really good. It's a little experimental, but it kind of reminded me of this, where, it just all it's all different. It's all stuff that, like that right there looks pretty cool. I don't know what that, and before everything was like there, because it's Japanese, everything's anime. And now this time around, I'm like, I don't know what this is called, but I like it. Visually, I like how everything looks. So,
yeah. And this is their May the 4th drop. So,
yes, right. Yeah. So that's soon. That's really soon.
Is this the last thing, or do we have something else?
Yeah. No, that's it. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's one other thing I just saw beforehand. I just totally blanked. There's the kid with it's a Star Wars. It's the kiddie show.
Tales of the Jedi.
Is that what it's called? No,
isn't it?
Because Tales of the Jedi is the the shorts with Dooku and all that, right? Isn't that what that's called? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like
it,
Jedi, young Jedi. Yeah, I know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
I think
Yeah,
it might be Young Jedi, maybe. I can't
yeah,
remember.
something like that.
I just wanted to reference it just because it's out there. But it reminded me of, it looks like Bubble Guppies, but for Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like it's a kiddie show.
Yeah,
And I just know everybody was all everybody was sort of making fun of it. They're like, well, geez, this is gonna have a real bummer of an ending because they're all the the kids.
yeah, right.
Vader,
Because they're all the Padawans.
Right.
Tales of the Jedi, is that it?
No, that's Tales of the Jedi is the
That was the other thing.
yeah. No, now we're gonna have to here. Well, now
Yeah, I'm
now,
trying to look it up.
I know. Here, let me go in here and see. I meant to. Here you go.
Young Jedi.
Young Jedi Adventures.
Okay. Yeah, and it's
Okay.
all like, it's like for little kids.
Yeah,
They're all little kids, and
yeah. So I'm probably not going to watch it, but if you have little kids, it might be something fun to watch, and
yeah,
it could be a good show. It looks like Yoda's in it, so but there could be some fun little Easter egg things, or world building to an extent, or something like that. Which it's always fun to if you're not enjoying the show per se, as a grown up, you might be like, oh, I like that,
yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. But that's the only other thing I had.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's about it. I guess that wraps up. There's some other announcements. Some comics and some books and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that was like that was all the big stuff.
That was the stuff that we were interested in.
Yeah. So.
All right. That's good.
Did that? All right. So we got the finales done. We went through our celebration stuff. Excellent.
Right. So we're all caught up. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
And then what's the next thing is?
Well, Star Wars Day.
There's a Marvel movie right around the corner, right?
Yes,
like
May the 4th is Star Wars Day, so we might get some surprises there. And then Guardians of the
Galaxy, right,
is in May at some point, but I don't remember.
Because they're doing all the press stuff for it already.
Yeah, like they're over, right? They're doing some stuff, and I think,
where
did I just see they were in Korea or Japan? They're doing some stuff, and actually, it's funny to say that now because, like we were saying last time, how I feel like they're really promoting the movie a lot, right? And they're like constantly releasing, but now it's like they were just released more today about like the Rocket's girlfriend is the Otter. There was a whole thing they like released with her, and I purposely didn't watch it because I'm like, I'm seeing there's too much of this movie out there.
Yeah.
Now. So just a heads up if you're waiting for Guardians, maybe just take a try not to watch the new stuff because I feel like they're really trying to get you into the theater, which is great. But if you watch everything, you're going to see the whole movie.
I just heard somebody else complain about that.
Too. Oh, okay. All right.
About something completely different. Like I said it about the Super Mario movie.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was for, but I just remember somebody saying, I feel like I saw this whole movie.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So
I mean, I've been saying about Guardians. I'm sure there's, I can't remember what other movies are coming out. So I give them credit for Indiana Jones because they only released that one trailer so far. Or they had that little teaser that didn't really count. But you know what I mean. So, who knows? As that gets closer, maybe they'll start releasing all that too. I don't know. But
I just heard something today. Take it for what it's worth. I don't know. It's unconfirmed. I don't even remember where I read it, but I heard or I read that the first 15 to 20 minutes of the Indiana Jones movie is de-aged.
Oh,
flashback. That's what I heard.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So take that for what it's worth. But I just heard that. Like I just read that somewhere today. I don't remember.
Well, actually, that would make sense because you figure every other Indiana Jones movie starts out with that open.
Right.
Like they will each have that opening, and I mean that's usually we're at about 20 minutes, right? That's probably so. If they do that as the open, as the pre-adventure, and he's de-aged, and then they come to the present day for it. So that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty neat. I would like that.
Yeah. So take for what's worth.
Yeah. Good. All right. Cool.
Good stuff.
All right. Very good. Then.
All right. Should we wrap it up for the night?
Yeah. All right. Yep.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching and listening tonight. You can follow us on Facebook. We're on Twitter we're at Geek Hangout Pod. on Twitter. We also have an Instagram account. You can follow us there. And of course, we're posting the YouTube channel. You can check us out on the YouTube channel if you prefer to watch us instead of listening to us. So
there you go.
With that, I'm going to wrap up the show. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we will talk to you next time. Good night, everybody.
All right, good night, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching.